The tropical island of Manuriki is covered with ice and snow. The ice giant Ymir fights the Avengers. The Hulk throws a giant stone at Ymir. Iron Man flies too close to the enemy and Ymir sends him into the sky with a mighty blow. The Reptile wants to help Stark, but Captain America sends a novice to check the ships standing off the coast. Captain Marvel notices a box of Eternal Winters in Ymir's hand. She shoots the ice giant. Then the Hulk hits Ymir in the face and the giant flies to the other side of the beach. The Reptile notices Loki on one of the boats and lands there. From demands that Loki throw his scepter, but the god of deception attacks the young Avenger and then opens a huge portal in the sky. Captain America fights with Ymir. He kicks a large icicle and it digs into Ymir's lower back. Ymir flies up into the air and falls on the sand. The captain hurries to pick up the box of Eternal Winters. The portal begins to pull in the Reptile, Ymir, and everyone nearby. The Hulk hugs the Avengers so that the portal does not suck them in. Cap finds the box, but the portal begins to suck him in. The Hulk catches the captain by the leg. The portal pulls Ymir and closes. The Reptile falls unconscious from a great height. The Hulk calls him and the Reptile comes to. The Reptile lands on the beach. He is greeted by the rest of the Avengers. Ymir and Loki discuss their failure in the land of the ice giants. Ymir offers Loki a new plan to conquer the world. He talks about Joulnir. Loki considers Joulnir a legend, but Ymir says that this is not so. Joulnir has a huge power that he spends to give joy to the children of all 9 worlds. Now Joulnir is more famous, like Santa Claus. Ymir wants to take away the power of Joulnir to destroy the Avengers. Joulnir lives in Alvheim, the land of elves. To take the power from Joulnir, Ymir and Loki are going to steal the casket of ancient powers, which is also in Alvheim. Loki opens a portal and is transported to the world of huge monsters. He pulls a huge lizard into his staff. The giant is needed to distract the Avengers. In the Avengers Tower, Captain America trains the Reptile. Kaitan explains to the Reptile that you always need to work as a team. There is a strange rumble outside. The Avengers go to check what's going on, but a huge monster is moving through the festive streets of New York. The monster throws the bus, but the Hulk manages to catch the car and put it back on the road. The Hulk beats the dinosaur and he flies up into the air. Iron Man has a plan. He asks the Reptile to turn his head into the head of a dinosaur. The monster takes the Reptile for his cub and starts licking. In the depths of space, Rocket repairs his spaceship with Groot. Rocket dreams of earning money to buy a new ship. He and Groot receive a message about the reward for catching Santa Claus and hurry to Alvheim. Loki and Ymir arrive in Alvheim and begin searching for the casket of ancient powers. Thor arrives at the Avengers Tower. Captain America meets him. Cap gathers all the Avengers. He believes that the lizard attack was a trick of Loki to distract the Avengers. Thor says that Loki announced a reward for the capture of Santa Claus. It seems to Stark a joke, but the captain is very serious. Jarvis reports that Santa has a huge power. If Loki and Ymir take possession of it, then the Avengers will have problems. Thor considers Joulnir a myth. Cap believes that it is necessary to go to Alvheim and check Joulnir. Thor says that the Rainbow Bridge will not open to outsiders, but Stark says that he has a device for crossing between worlds. The captain asks Thor to stay on Earth with the Hulk in order to fulfill Santa's duties if necessary. Loki and Ymir take in prisoner custody of the commander of the Emerald of the Elves named Afidel. Elf must specify the villains the way to the casket of ancient forces. Reptile asks Captain America to take it with you on your mission. Captain Marvel and Tony Stark convince Cap to take a novice A. Captain Marvel asks Stark why it helps, if not even believe in Santa. Tony replies that he just wants to prove that he is right and no Santa does not exist. The Avengers move to Alheim and immediately attack the soldiers, Emerald Guardians of the Elves. The Elves need to let go of aphids. Tony Stark tries to explain the elves that they are looking for Joulnir and don't know anything about the kidnapping of the commander of the Emerald Guardians. Elves open fire. Stark knocks arrow shots, but the captain of the elves attacking him from behind. Captain Marvel flies over fighting and shoots energy beams to stop the fighting. The Avengers offer to help the elves to defeat Loki and Ymir. The elves don't want to work with strangers. but reptiles are able to convince them otherwise. In New York, Thor and Hulk talking about Christmas. Green Giant says the God of Thunder about Christmas traditions. And Alvheim fly Rocket and Groot. They land in the woods. Gingerbread Man. Groot detaches from one of the men behind. The carrot has Groot and takes a button. Groot carries the carrot into pieces. Now on a Rocket and Groot attack all the cakes. Rocket opens Anoi and carries all of Gingerbread. Groot and Rocket escape from the forest. Loki and Ymir move through the ice cave. They are led by the commander of the Elven Guard. The Avengers also head to the box. Loki and Ymir see the box, but they are attacked by the keeper of the box, Ymir. The walls of the tunnel begin to shake. The Avengers feel it and realize that Loki and Ymir have found the box. Kraken grabs Loki, but the God of Thunder manages to tame the beast. Ymir freezes the commander of the Elven Guard, the Ice Giant, gives the box of ancient powers to Loki. Loki collapses the vault of the cave, and he and Ymir hide in the portal. Ymir appears in the tunnel right in front of the Avengers. The battle begins. The commander of the elves tames the Kraken with a special relic. The monster hides in the bowels of the earth. The elves still let the Avengers to the mountain where Joulnir lives. Thor and Hulk go into a toy store. There they meet a seller named Nick. Thor and Hulk buy all the toys in the store and ask to write everything down to Tony Stark's account. They also take Nick with them. Groot and Rocket notice the sleigh and grab the passenger, but it turns out not Santa, but his wife. Mrs. Claus is not angry at Rocket and Groot at all. She invites them to her home. Loki and Ymir are watching the Avengers. Cap and the team are heading to the Merry Mountain. They are stopped by the Emerald Guards. The elves are not going to let the heroes pass. The battle begins. An arrow hits Iron Man and he falls to the ground. Captain America jumps up and asks Captain Marvel to throw him. Carol shoots energy at Cap's shield and he flies up to the top of the mountain. A Kraken is already on duty at Santa Claus' house. Cap grabs the reptile's tail and finds himself on the threshold of Santa's house. However, the door can't be opened. The Kraken disappears in a blue flash. Santa Claus' house disappears with him. The Avengers are surrounded by elves and pointed bows at them. In New York, on the roof of one of the buildings, Thor, Hulk, and Nick are going to deliver gifts to children. Thor takes off over the roofs and pulls a sleigh drawn by deer. The Avengers are preparing for another fight with the Emerald Guard, but the reptile manages to convince the elves to lower their weapons because Santa is not here, which means there is no need to fight. The commander of the guard agrees with the guy and lets the heroes go. Captain America is trying to find out where Joulnir has disappeared. The elves say that now is the time for distributing gifts, which means Joulnir has set off. He will start with the nearest of the worlds, Midgard. The Avengers understand that Loki and Ymir went there. At this time, Rocket and Groot are riding on a sleigh together with Mrs. Claus. The sleigh is rushing at great speed and soaring up on a springboard. The sleigh lands on top of the Merry Mountain, but Joulnir is no longer in place. Mrs. Claus offers Rocket and Groot a ride further, but they refuse in horror, saying that they have their own ship. Mrs. Claus is delighted. She has never steered a ship. Ymir and Loki arrive at the Merry Mountain. They are surrounded by Emerald Guards. Loki offers the elves to go over to his side, but they refuse. Loki beats the elves with the energy of his staff. The Avengers fly over the ground. The reptile freezes very much. At this time, Thor, Nick, and the Hulk fly over towns and villages. The Hulk throws gifts. Nick is trying to cope with nausea. Cap and the others discover Santa's house. There is no one in the house. The reptile rushes to the fireplace to warm up. Mrs. Claus controls the ship, maneuvering between asteroids. The Rocket is very worried because Mrs. Claus can break his ship. Mrs. Claus says that her husband distributes gifts to all children on during one night. Groot and Rocket realize that they made a mistake and Santa Claus is not a criminal. The Avengers drink hot chocolate in Santa's house by the fireplace. Tony Stark still does not believe that this is really Santa Claus' house and is trying to find hidden cameras. Reptile talks about his childhood, about how Santa fulfilled his dream and gave him a toy dinosaur. Carol and Steve tell stories of childhood, about how Santa had carried out their wishes. In response, Tony tells how in 6 years, sent a letter to Santa asking you to provide evidence of its existence, but the letter came back, and Tony just threw him the reptile said that Santa just need to believe Santa's house to attack Loki. Ymir and enchanted elves, Avengers rush in, Captain Marvel and Iron Man are attacked Ymir, Captain America flinging elves in the party, Reptile flies to the cap and carries it away from the arrows of the elves. Ymir the ice arrow hit the creeper and they cap fall into the snow next to them and fall of Tony and Carol. Loki orders a mirror freeze heroes. Then from the sky begin to fall the fiery shells. Loki raises one of them. It was a Christmas present. To the place of battle flew Thor, Hulk and Nick. Ymir preparing a huge bag of gifts. Captain America welcomes friends, Stark Govro, that looks like the real Santa they did not see. Loki takes hostages Reptile and requires that the Avengers had taken to him the real Santa Claus or the kid dies. Cap commands Reptile's duck and all the Avengers are attacking Loki, but they can't break his shield. Loki once again grabs the Reptile, but here comes Santa Claus. Loki with box takes Santa's his strength. The creepers trying to save Klaus, but it's too late. Loki easily defeats the Avengers. He puts them in an impenetrable dome. Reptile asks Santa to wake up. A dome around the Avengers implode. Nick tries to stop Loki and a dome around Mstateli suddenly disappears. Santa is leaning on the shoulder of Reptiles. The Avengers once again rush to Loki, Hulk flinging elves. Loki passes the blow by blow. The final blow gets Reptile. Stark thanks the Reptile for helping him find faith in Santa Claus. Klaus thanks the Reptile and all the Avengers. Tony says that the Avengers will help Santa deliver gifts. The Emerald Guards take Loki to prison. The awakened Ymir attacks the Avengers, but the Rocket, Groot and Mrs. Claus come to the rescue. The Avengers fly with Santa to on his new sleigh. Hulk throws gifts. On top of the Avenger Tower, Santa presents gifts to the Avengers. Rocket and Groot get a new ship. Ymir and Loki restore Santa's house under the supervision of elves. Tony receives his old letter to Santa as a gift. Groot turns into a huge Christmas tree. Hulk sings a Christmas song.